So now what we want to do is we want to go ahead and edit this dress. We want to pull out the color of this dress and we want to edit it. Now there's a number of different ways that you can do this. You can use a selection method such as the lasso tool, polygonal lasso tool, or the magnetic lasso tool. So I could come in and I could try to follow the contours of the dress and work that way. Or I could use something like the pen tool, which would give me the same thing. I can actually come in, and this is what a lot of people would do if they're making designs that aren't too complicated, is you can come in and you can create a pen, and out of that pen you can actually create a selection. So I can change this to make selection. We'll hit OK, and that makes a selection for us also, which is kind of cool. But we don't want to do that either. There's some easier ways we can go about this. There's also some selection methods, like if you go to select, you can go to color range, and then you can actually click on the dress and it will try to select that for you. And by adjusting the fuzziness, you can bring in more of that. This is a great starting point. This might be something that you want to do. If you hold down the shift, just like you would do with normal selections, you can keep adding to the selection. But as you can see, if I accidentally pull in some colors I didn't mean to, I need to use the minus and get rid of those, like her arm. But some reds are actually in the dress that are in her arm. So this works really good sometimes, other times not so great. Sometimes you can use a combination of these. So I can cancel that. I might do a color range and then use a polygonal lasso tool or the pen tool to deselect parts that I don't want. But just to make this easy, let's go ahead and select the quick selection tool. This might be one of the easiest ways to make selections inside Photoshop. Now I'm going to go ahead and make sure I have the woman in red dress layer selected, and I am going to select all of her, and then we can work with just her, not the background and everything else. So if we grab a little bit of extra skin or her face or shoes or whatever, that's okay. We're not going to worry about that right now. Let's just go ahead and start clicking and see if we can at least grab the dress. And if we pick up, say, her face or other parts of her body, that's okay too. We're not worried about that. But really we want to have the dress and make sure we have all of the dress selected. Now when we get down here in the bottom where it gets dark with the shoes and the shadows, it's going to have a hard time figuring out what part is the dress, what part is her shoe, and what part is the floor. So you can see it selected some of the floor there. And we can try to clean that up. Now, as I begin working, I would definitely take my time with this, but because I need to go a little fast, I'm going to do this very quickly. It's going to be a little sloppy, but you want to take your time and do your best job. So I'm going to zoom in here and I'm going to scroll down, and we're going to try to see if we can deselect some of this floor that we don't need. Now, if we get her shoe or take her shoe, that doesn't matter because we're not going to be working with that anyways. But we definitely want to make sure that we don't deselect any of the dress. See, this red here got unselected. Let's see if we can bring that back in. Okay, that worked pretty nicely. And I might just stay zoomed in here and just kind of go around and double check everything. Make sure I got all the red of the dress selected. Her strap is part of that selection, so that's okay. Make sure I don't miss anything right here on her back. So might need to zoom in and make sure I pick up those pixels. But be careful not to hit the background because then it'll grab the whole background, and that's not what we want. Okay, so this looks good. So I'm going to zoom out so we can see what's going on here. This is a really big image. You can see we're zoomed out to 16.7%, so it's a very large file size, but it preserves that resolution as we zoom in and out and just works a little better. Now what I want to do is I want to go ahead and copy this to its own layer. That way we're working with just her, and we don't have to worry about any of the background stuff. So if I accidentally pick up the background, that's not an issue. So let's go ahead and copy and paste her to her own layer. To do that, we're going to go to the top and we're going to go to Edit, and we're going to go to Copy, and then we're going to go back to Edit and go to Paste. Now these are typical shortcut keys that you'll find in all kinds of programs on your computer. Control C to copy, Control V to paste. On Mac OS that would be Command C to copy or Command V to paste. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Paste, and you won't see any changes, but what has happened is it has copied that selection and pasted that selection into its own layer. You can see that's called layer 1. Let's go ahead and name that, and we'll just call this woman only and hit enter. And if I hide the woman in red dress background, you can see our selection. So here you can see we didn't have our foot selected, so it cut off a piece of that. That's okay, we're not going to work with that. And you can see that it's just got her. This works really good because if I'm trying to select part of her dress with a quick selection tool, say down here in the dark area, I'm not picking up any of that extra background information. It'll snap to the edges of this, and that's really what we want. We don't want to be selecting the background. So for instance, let me go back. I'll unhide her and just bring in the normal woman in red dress. And down here where I might be trying to select the dress, I might accidentally pick up some of the floor. And that's really not what we want. So it's good to have her on her own layer. So I have my original layer. Let's take a look at them. Original layer, if I'm making mistakes, I can come back and fix this. I have my woman in red dress layer, so I can always work on this. This is the main editing layer that I'm using. And then I've copied her to herself so that as I begin working, I don't pick up any of the background. But we need to see that background, so that's why we keep that woman in red dress layer there, so that background stays there for us. Let's go ahead and save this. So I'm going to go to File and Save and make sure that this file is saved. And now what we need to do is we need to block out just the dress. So let's hide this woman in red dress layer, and you can see that we have her arm and her face and all of these other things that we don't want. Well, now we're going to have to just take our time and use some of the tools to see if we can select just the pieces that we want. I'm going to go a little quick. I might speed up the video a little bit just to fly through it so you don't have to sit here and watch me editing. But what I would do is I'd probably start with the quick selection tool again, or maybe you could use the, let's do the color range. So if I go to select color range, it brings up this panel. And I can go ahead and select the red in her dress. And if I hold shift and I keep selecting different parts of the red, the dark areas and light areas, you can see. But it's picking up a lot of her arm and face because they have those reds in there. That might not be what I want. So let's just go ahead with the quick selection tool. And we are going to go ahead and start selecting the red parts of her dress here. So I don't have to hold down shift. If I just click inside of the red area, it'll pick it up. So I'll just go ahead and pick the main parts, and then we'll have to go in and fine tune some of this stuff. So I'm going to zoom in. I'm going to hit Control or Command plus. I'm going to hit space to pan upward, and I want to make sure that I get these straps. So let me go ahead and click here and make sure it picks that up. Now I would definitely try to work on making sure I got this as accurate as possible. Okay. And this is going to be the hard one, is this thin strap right here. So this is based on a brush. I can make this brush smaller. So if I go to my brush settings, I can actually tone down the size to a smaller size. You also have bracket keys on your keyboard. So these are the brackets that's usually located underneath the backspace. And if you hit those, you can actually make your brush size bigger or smaller just by doing that. So I'm going to pick a small one and then see if I can't grab this strap, which is going to be kind of hard. So that's not working really well. So let's undo that. Let's try the magic wand and see if we can pick that easily. So we'll grab the magic wand this time, and we'll set a tolerance of 50. We'll hold down shift. We have to hold down shift for this tool and click one time on that red strap, and you see it grabbed it a little better for us. So we're going to go ahead and keep holding shift and use this. So what you can do is you can use a combination of tools to make your selections. So here we have some of the skin, and if we don't want that, using the magic wand, we'll hold down the Alt or Option key and we'll deselect, but it did too much. It took away some of the dress. Let me undo that, and let's turn down the tolerance to a lower number, let's say 30. We'll hit Alt or Option, and that gives us a much better selection. So that's really what we're looking for here. So I'll just keep going down and double check the different areas, and it's just a matter of using some of these different tools. Some people like using the pen tool or the polygonal tool. Some people do it the way I'm doing it. You could use the color range if that's easier for you, but we have the arm selected and we don't want the arm selected. So I'm going to zoom out, and it's actually the bracelet and the hand is what we need to get rid of. So I'm going to hold Alt and I'm going to click in here. That's not working real well because there's too many different colors. Let's go back to the quick selection. I'm going to hold Alt and drag around her hand and see if I can get rid of some of this. Now these darker areas might give us a problem, but I just kind of drag around the edges and then Photoshop will try to figure it out for me, which is awesome. And this is actually working out pretty well. We might have to refine this up a little bit, but not too bad. Okay, now you can see that there are some spots in her hand that are having trouble in these shadows. We might be able to see that a little better. So what I would do is I would go ahead and at this point maybe use the polygonal lasso tool. And I want to get rid of this, so I'm going to hold Alt. I'm going to click one time on this finger. And I'm just going to go around. This is not going to be great. I would definitely take my time and make this selection a lot better. But I just want to delete around the finger here. Okay, and then once I do, I'll just go back and connect it. And I was holding Alt or Option the whole time, and what that did was that gave me the ability to erase that piece. Now I need to add a little bit back in. You can see this little red piece here. So I'll hold down Shift, which is our adding. And I'm just clicking around the finger multiple times, maybe doing 20, 30, 40 clicks here to add that back in. And then we'll add that back in there. So it's just really going to be a matter of trying different tools and different methods, and different images are going to be harder than other images. So you'll really just have to kind of to play around with it and see what you can do to get it to work. So around this bracelet, we might need to subtract a little bit. Looks like it went out of the boundaries too much there. And I'm holding Alt or Option because I'm deleting this. I don't want any of this. Okay. And if I wanted to, I could go in and clean this up. Let's hold Shift and redo. Sometimes you take away and then you add back in. Might be easier. All kinds of different ways of going about this. But hopefully this gives you some ideas of how you could edit. So I'm just using different tools. So I'm either using the quick selection tool, the magic wand tool, or the polygonal tool to select and deselect. And of course I would really try to take my time and do the best that I could. So let's go down. The last problem area is going to be down here at the bottom. We just want to make sure that we don't have that foot inside of this selection. So everything is selected right now, and probably the best way again would be to use like the polygonal lasso tool or the pen tool. So I'm just going to start over here where I know there's a good corner of this dress, and I'm going to hold down Alt and just deselect this foot. Okay, we're going to zoom out here, and now we should just have the red dress selected. We can check this by going to our Move tool and just moving it out and kind of looking side by side to see, okay, do we have everything here? It looks like the dress is selected, no body parts. Her body parts are left over. So that's what we want. This is great.